What's up, everyone? We're back for the final breakdown for American Horror Story Freak Show. This is episode 13. I am in one last onesie, and I think we're joined by a friend on Ryan's end.
Yeah, this is Finn. Not to be confused with Finn Whitrock, but this is Finn, and this is why I'm not wearing a onesie, because he's taking up all my time. But he is excited to get into the breakdown, the finale of AHS Freak Show. Oh, thank you for the love. Thank you. Look at how loving he is.
Oh, it's Finn. Okay, we're going to talk about Jessica Lange. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start things off with a little background into this episode and the season as a whole, as this episode's titled Curtain Call, which may be a big reference to Jessica Lange's at the time, final performance as an AHS character and her retirement overall as an actress.
Yeah. I mean, obviously she comes back for the episode of Apocalypse, Return to Murder House, right? But at this point, we think that she might, call it quits in acting in general, and obviously on AHS. So, and I believe that a lot of this season was basically kind of inspired by what she wanted to do, right?
Yes, in the past, Murphy and Lange have said that, it was Lange's idea for the Freak Show setting and the theme itself. Now, while she did retire for a brief moment, she came out of retirement immediately to work with Ryan Murphy again on Feud.
And action!
Oh, God damn!
I barely touched her.
Did you get it?
And one last thing that we should probably talk about a little bit more, maybe when we talk about next season that we're going to get into a little bit later on, is that the theme for season 5 at the time was supposedly going to be on the Civil War. Every time I think about that, I just get furious because World War II and the Civil War are such great themes to go with for American Horror Story. So whenever that happens, now we got slashers out of the way. These are the big two I'm looking forward to more than anything. With that said, Jessica Lange was going to return to either if it was going to be Civil War or something else. Even other cast members have said they assumed going into season 5 that it was going to be a Civil War theme until it changed to Hotel for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's a great point though, Greg. That something around the wartime with the horror tropes that we've seen them use in this show would be a fun watch to kind of.
They were setting it up.
Yeah, I would totally be into something like this. Maybe, hopefully, in future seasons we get some of that. But obviously we know it went to Hotel, so this is like a good, a fitting send off to call it Curtain Call, and obviously it shows her the fate of her Elsa Mars in this episode. Also, we get the fate of Dandy and his Curtain Call, right? He wanted to be a performer, and then we find out what happened to him in this episode. So the episode title is spot on for everything that it represents.
Oh yeah. Okay, so the episode officially kicks off with Eve and Paul and the rest of the gang putting up a banner outside of the Freak Show for Dandy, the new big boss. He's got a new banner up, and it's ridiculous.
Greg, how quickly did he have this banner made? He's the charismatic crooner, Dandy Mott. Yeah, right. We learned that he can't sing at all, but remember earlier in the season, I think it was episode 2, he literally name drops Cole Porter, that he knows his entire catalog, that he can sing all of his songs. So here on the banner, obviously he puts that on the banner, but they're kind of like reluctantly doing this for him. They're almost like, hey, it's like you get a new boss and you kind of have to deal with it, and you're like, okay, let's just kind of bleed him until he's dry.
Yeah.
But the problem is that he has so much money that it's not going to happen, and it's going to end up, it's going to end up deadly at some point.
Now, the banner's only up for maybe half an hour before Dandy starts to freak out and have his first tantrum with the crew. And it doesn't last long before everyone realizes that this is just a terrible idea, and they decide to just break from Dandy as he just insults everyone to their face.
Yeah, what does Dandy expect, though? It's like, in the 1950s, like the banner's up for 30 minutes. Like there's no like online ticket sales. Like did he really expect him like to sell out of tickets within 30 minutes of?
Yes, he did.
That's ridiculous. Dandy is completely out of touch with what's going on.
Well, the man does drink out of a bottle of, what was it? Does he put cognac in the bottle? What did he drink out of that little?
Yeah, I believe he's been raised on a baby bottle of cognac. Who knows what reality he's living in, right?
So Paul and the rest of the performers quit, but Paul spits in Dandy's face. They insult him, and then they walk out. And of course, this is not good news for the rest of the cast, especially since this is the last episode, so people are getting clipped.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to end up deadly, especially if you just kind of like don't disobey Dandy to his face, right? Like something horrible is going to happen now, and you're concerned about all the freaks at the campground at this point.
The yikes meter is at an all-time high.
You'll never be one of us, and you don't own us.
Meanwhile, Elsa arrives to LA to go to WBN, the offices for it's Gable. I'm assuming this is a nod to Clark Gable, the head of the WBN production company. Now she waits out there for it seems like a few days and finds out that Gable doesn't want anything to do with her, so he goes out the back door. This leads to an argument where the secretary says this:
Change your act. Marlena did it better.
Now, just when you think it's bad luck for Elsa that her trip to Hollywood is going horribly, well, lo and behold, Michael Beck, a junior vice president of casting, just so happens, he coincidentally finds her outside, comes to the rescue, and they admit that they catch similarities in their backgrounds. They're both German. And you know, like, wow, that's pretty convenient that she just ran into this guy, and this is literally how she's going to get her career going in Hollywood. Now, back at the campground, just like we expected, Dandy's out for blood, literally. You see him applying makeup onto his face. Then he goes the classic showtime as he's looking himself in the mirror. This is a nod back. I looked it up. All That Jazz from 1979. Of course, Roy Scheider plays Joe Gideon in that, and he keeps on. You see him keep on saying, "It's showtime. It's showtime. It's showtime." So a fun little nod there.
That also has ties back to Jessica Lange, who's also worked on All That Jazz. So this is a cool wraparound for Ryan Murphy, what he's doing here with this character and giving it as almost a tribute to Jessica Lange.
And you'll notice that Dandy starts to hum at this point after he has his makeup on and starts walking outside before he goes on his killing spree. And he's actually humming The Nutcracker, which is funny because Paul had previously made a comment to Chester when he was doing his makeup about looking like a nutcracker. So a fun little nod back to a previous conversation that we had in the last episode of American Horror Story. So it's a pretty menacing and gruesome and horrifying kind of sequence right here, obviously, right? When he's all done up, he's ready for his showtime, he's ready for his performance, and his performance, what he's best at, is just murdering people. Now, Dandy is successful in murdering just about everybody. I mean, like we said, horrifying scenes. The one that stood out to me is kind of when he shot Penny through the draped sheets that had like the floral looks on them. The splattering of blood goes through it. It was really, really sad, this whole like sequence. But he basically kills everybody. Amazon Eve gets a good fight in it, but still she meets her demise as well. Sorry, that's Finn barking. Okay, we're back. No more barking. Sorry about that. But the one thing that I picked out of this whole sequence, Greg, and I don't know if I'm a weirdo that I do this when I watch movies and TV shows, Dandy doesn't reload his pistol at all. He just like
I notice that all the time in movies when it comes to guns.
Yeah, exactly. That always irritates me, dude. I'm always like, how many bullets would that hold? It's a small like hand revolver. I mean, he got what, like 6-8 shots in it, and he just kills like literally everybody.
We're nitpicking. We're completely nitpicking.
This is definitely called nitpicking.
Yes, because I'm going to add on to that nitpicking, because the second the shots go off, no one's like, that's a little weird. There's like at least even 3 shots. And look, okay, 1, all right, maybe there's an act going on. 2 shots, it's time to get up. And 3, it's time to just start running. I don't care. When you see 1, 2, or 3, it's like the old Kings of Comedy joke. When you see 2 people running, everybody starts running. It's time to go.
So, Keith and them.
Greg, you and I would be the first ones in the car driving off immediately if this happened.
Taxi. Uber, I don't care what time period it is, I'm getting one.
Now, again, in this episode, as we heard in previous episodes of this season, we hear a sampling of the music from The Elephant Man, the score that was done by John Morris. One of them in particular called Carnival, the Elephant Man theme song. You'll hear like kind of a sampling throughout when Dandy's walking around here and later in the episode, but a cool little nod to another, obviously an inspiration of the film, of this season of TV.
Now, due to the scuffle with Amazon Eve and Dandy, Desiree is able to, get away for the time being. She manages to escape from Dandy's wrath, and we find out later on that she meets up with Jimmy when he arrives to the freak show later on to find all of his friends scattered figured out in the big top.
Yeah, just a horrifying scene. Like, not only did Dandy kill all of them, but then he kind of put them on display for anyone that would return to return there. And then we also learned that Dandy obviously kidnapped the twins and took them, and he plans to marry them.
Good Lord. Now, afterwards, this leads to a dinner where the twins and Dandy are toasting, and he starts to get a little woozy, and things are getting a little blurry. The twins reveal that they were never going to marry him, of course. They weren't going to let him get away with what he did to the rest of their friends. And then we see Desiree, and from there, we even see Jimmy showing up.
So clearly it was Desiree that had mentioned to Jimmy that the twins were taken by Dandy. Jimmy's been there before. He knows exactly where Dandy would have taken them back to his mansion, and they all conspire together to get back at Dandy. An awesome scene when they kind of all unify the remaining survivors and fight back and get rid of and take Dandy down. I thought it was really well done. How you see his blurry vision, he doesn't know what's going on. He's kind of in shock. Normally, Dandy's the one in control, and he has a plan. And now he is being bested by this group of freaks.
You're finally going to be a part of the show.
And from there, he wakes up in Hardin Houdini's water tank that we saw earlier in this episode. That was foreshadowed. He's chained inside of it, so he can't get out. And the rest of the crew, Desiree, Jimmy, and the twins, are just going to watch on as they pour water in there for one final moment of, I guess this is like a tribute to honor the freaks who died because of Stanley and Maggie, who were also, put in tubes themselves in the Morbidity Museum.
Yeah, very fitting imagery, right? To have literally the last thing that we how Dandy meets his doom in the same glass structures that all of the previous freaks, a handful of them, were taken to against their will in the Morbidity
to be
Museum.
Put on display.
Yeah, so it's a fitting end of Dandy of, hey, you're the, and then even when Desiree says you're the biggest freak of all of us, and then basically to put him in a big glass jar. And have him an epic death, I might say. Like, this was pretty much like he deserves every minute of this torture. And I loved how fitting it was to the themes of this whole season.
Heck of a show. That boy is a star.
But the episode is not over there. We still got to figure out what's happening with Elsa Mars. Now, of course, it's kind of fast forward to 1960 Hollywood, and this kind of newsreel helps get us up to date of what's going on in her hood. She basically is getting a Walk of Fame star because she's so big. And remember, the last time we saw her, she was a nobody still, but now it's revealed that clearly that connection that she made that day in Hollywood, it has paid off. She's a 3-time Emmy Award winner, and now she's famous for her Elsa Mars Hour that airs every Friday, and she also has some awards for her recording album. So she's like big time now, Greg.
With that said, she's having some troubles here because they want her to perform on Halloween night, and she refuses. She flat out, no way. Yeah. No way. Everything's going too well for her right now, and she does not want Edric Mordrake to show up and drag her straight to hell.
Now, in the romance department, Elsa is not in love with Beck. It almost seems like she used that relationship to get some, progress on her personal career in Hollywood. She's not happily married. Her heart is still back with Massimo, who we see kind of come back into the picture and gives us an update on what he's been up to and what he's been doing and all that kind of stuff. You see kind of flashbacks of how he kind of helped her back to health back in the day. But unfortunately, it doesn't work out with these two because Massimo tells her that he doesn't have much time to live, that he's sick. I wish kind of we had more of their story together. We have a few flashbacks here and there throughout the season, but I think Danny Houston's such a great actor, such a great performer that I would have loved to get more of him this season.
As a side note, he brings up that he was working in Nevada on I think on some project with the atomic bomb. That just felt like something they were going to have like right down for now, and we're going to have it for a future season down the line, because I feel like they should come back to that at some point. Maybe they should have did it in Apocalypse. But who knows?
I agree with you, dude. If you can get Danny Houston more airtime for him in this show, at any point down the line, I think it's a no-brainer. You got to do it.
Lucifer, make him Lucifer.
Oh, now just as we see Elsa at the kind of height of her career, the prime, there's some bad news. The old snuff film of her getting mutilated against her will resurfaces. Basically, it's like some evil stuff here, Greg, where it's kind of used against her to force her into like
TMZ of the time.
Yeah, it's pretty menacing and horrible that something like this, something that was like such a point of hurt in her life and obvious traumatic experience is now being used against her to make her force her, coerce her into doing certain things. Authorities also know her involvement in the freak show, and revealed to her that all the bodies that have been found and everyone who's passed away and were found murdered, and basically it's just all these things kind of resurfacing from her past, coming back to haunt her nowadays, which basically will lead to her saying, "Screw it, I have no other choice. I guess I have to perform on Halloween," even though she doesn't want to.
I will perform on Halloween. Why not?
Now, in this episode, it is said that Hedda Hopper was the one that acquired the snuff film of Elsa being tortured. Funny note here is that Hedda Hopper was a real person. In fact, on the first season of Murphy's other show, Feud, Bet and Joan, back in 2017, we see her friendship with actress Joan Crawford, who, of course, was played by Jessica Lange, also here playing Elsa Mars. So a fun little tie-in with another one of Ryan Murphy's shows, and linking in a real-life person into this whole universe. Regardless, Elsa's in a bind here, right? She's against her will, being forced to perform on Halloween, and we know that bad things will come if this goes down.
And of course, Elsa starts up her performance on Halloween night. The fog starts to roll in. No one else can see this other than, I'm assuming, just the fog. I don't even know if it was the green fog, but whatever the case, it was great. I love this scene. The fog rolls in. David Bowie starts playing, or Elsa performs David Bowie's Heroes, which is fitting because of her German background and the fact that Bowie, he wrote this song, and this is during his Berlin days at the time with Brian Eno. So this is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I thought it was pretty funny. Like the stage manager or director was kind of like reacting to the fog. He's like, no, not yet. It's not until later. But like it's clearly out of his control, and like more Drake's coming. No one else really knows what's going on or what's happening or sees it. It's kind of unclear here, but Elsa knows exactly what's going down and knows this is pretty much the end. She made it out one time before meeting Mordrake, but she knows that like here it is. She's at the height of her career, and she has to kind of come to terms with her fate at this point.
Yeah, and we see the rest of the dead freaks with Mordrake, including Twisty, to let her know that it hurts for a second, but don't worry, you're coming with us. Which leads down.
Thanks for the advice, Twisty. Thank you so much for the heads up.
Yeah. Well, with that said, he stabs her. She dies, and she wakes up in. This is a little confusing because you're not sure. Is this just her afterlife? Because everyone's a little too nice. To Elsa when she gets back to the freak show.
Yeah.
Under the big top, everyone's very nice to her, but at the same time, we only see the characters that died. No Jimmy, no twins, no Desiree. So it is in American Horror Story fashion. You would think, are these people ghosts, or are we looking at something else of the afterlife? And I'm assuming this is more of the afterlife and not something like Murder House or even Hotel or any other season where there's like haunted campgrounds or anything like that with the ghosts. I think this is more of an afterlife thing.
I mean, that would be a crazy idea if, like, literally they're all stuck on that freak show campground for eternity. But let's not get into that. I took it as this is heaven. Now, I don't know why she would get to go to heaven after everything that she's done in her life, or like why her fate. When Mordrake says that she's not coming with us, basically, like. I thought that she would deservingly be damned to some hell after what everything that she's done in her life, and she even brings it up, like, what about all my sins? What have I done? And basically, it was kind of like, oh well, we all have some horrible things, and you're a star, you get away with anything. Like, it was kind of like really weird how she was just like, obviously horrible things have happened to her. We get it and we understand. But then to see her kind of go into her perfect heaven, her own personal heaven, was kind of a weird move, I feel.
It's a send-off for Jessica Lange.
Yeah.
They were not going to have her, just like Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell, where they're just going to suck her down. No, that's not going to happen here.
What a horrible exit that would be. Yeah.
A graceful landing here for the finale, and the final frame ends on her. I thought it was a perfect send-off, honestly. If this was the last time we saw Jessica Lange as an AHS character, awesome. Now, she would return, of course, for Return to Murder House, but that's for another time.
So Elsa finds her sort of peace at the end of this. She performs again in front of the freak show. She has her troupe of all of her family freaks, that she hopefully will treat a little bit better in the afterlife. Let's hope. Fingers crossed. But Greg, I want to ask you, after watching the whole season of Freak Show again, getting a refresher on everything we've known about the season, what do you think will stick with you most about this season?
The characters. I fell in love with these characters over and over again this season, and that's one of the best things about AHS is when they know their characters from beginning to end, and they just toss them in there, and they have great performances from everybody on board.
I'm going to the garage to work on my magic.
Looking back at it, seeing all the Easter eggs and how they just made this a giant tribute to freaks, and the way they went across, the themes of, racism, sexism, and during the time period, this was a great season, and they really locked down their characters, which makes a great season overall.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I enjoyed how inspired it was from the 1932 films Freaks, and I did like how they kind of used that to make a statement on society, on the disparity between races, other classes of people, and gender as well, or sexuality, all of it. I do think, though, it was probably a little bit too stretched out. I think 13 episodes, I think you might agree that it's just like too much for a season of TV. I think like 8 to 10 is the perfect amount. There were some introduction of characters where you might not have needed it. It was kind of just there just to be there. And I guess they could make these seasons a little bit tighter, but more American Horror Story, no one's complaining. It's always a good thing. I will say, seeing all the stars in this season. In recent seasons, we haven't gotten everyone, all on board every season. So when you get Sarah Paulson and you get Evan Peters, Jessica Lange, like it's a really different type of American Horror Story season when you get all those involved. I want to close and say that I was absolutely floored by the performance of Finn Wittrock. His first season of American Horror Story. I think Dandy Mott was such a great character. Even the tantrums. And just how well he played it, the charisma he plays with, the inner struggle, turmoil, and anger and pain inside of him. I think it was so well done. That we talked about that American Psycho type montage that we have in the later
American
on in the season.
Psycho it's like American Psycho with Jack Nicholson's Joker. Yeah. It's such a great performance.
Yeah, and obviously Finn Wittrock will be in later seasons of American Horror Story. Always a great pleasure to see him involved more often. So when you talk about like actors that could really take on a great villainous role, Finn Wittrock stands out for me after watching this season of Freak Show. But obviously, thank you guys at home for joining us all season long for these breakdowns of Freak Show. Hit us up in the comments for any of your thoughts, what you thought of the whole season of Freak Show, what you liked, what you didn't like, and how great Greg's onesies were all year long.
It's all good, and we'll be right back with more AHS coverage coming your way, including more breakdowns for another season of something down the line. Until then, everybody stay safe, and bye-bye. Have a good one.
Later, guys.